Do I think that everyone needs to time block? Yes. Do I also think that you can be an ambivert time blocker? Also, yes. But do I also think that you could become a crazy color-coded calendar lady like me? Also, yes. What's up, you beautiful mother? In today's video, I thought we could be a little risque and pull the curtain back on my latest addiction, calendar blocking. You've heard me say a million times now how I take a daily siesta, I practice microambition, yada yada, the list goes on. But the issue here is that I did all of it in my mind. I was horrible at writing things down, and it wasn't that I was forgetting anything, but I was a little anarchist in the fact that, it's trending to document everything. However, on the other side of that, I did in my gut know that by freeing up just a little bit of space, I could create more time to do better work and even build new projects. So I gave in and I started documenting every I started out slowly, just adding items to my calendar one by one, but then there was so much added that I couldn't tell what items belonged to which project and where my time was actually being spent. It was driving me crazy. And so I then started using all of the colored labels within my calendar, but there were several issues with using the calendar labels, one being that there's a limit on how many labels you can have. And of course, I hit that in a matter of days, but there had to be another solution. I knew I am not the only person in the world who wanted to have my Google Calendar organized more efficiently. So I did some digging, and I even went as far as trying to rig the system. I dove into so many YouTube searches to find a solution and ended up deciding that creating a multi-calendar system was the best option. And so this system's pretty simple. It actually is stupid simple. And for me, who I would like to assume that I am tech forward, I had no clue that I could create this. I didn't know it existed. And so before I show you how to set up your different calendars, I want to go through all of the categories that I use to hopefully give you some inspiration. So first up, my main calendar. This is going to be your default calendar that's associated with your email. So think of when somebody invites you to a calendar invite, that's where all of these are going to go as the primary. But then I have my admin calendar. So I use this to document random blocks like email catch-up or planning. Then I have two separate calendars, the first for client calls, and then the second is client deliverables. And I feel like these are pretty straightforward, right? So if I have a strategy call or a task due for a client, they go on their associated calendars. The next one's going to be content creation. And one of my goals this year is to find a better balance between client work and content. And so this is probably my most important calendar to use for tracking right now. And I'm not going to lie, I actually feel pretty guilty when I look at my weekly spread and don't see any red blocks on my calendar. The next is going to be internal projects. This seems pretty straightforward too, but I will say that this calendar is what I lean on my assistant Alexa with the most. We meet once a month and I brain dump different projects I want to work on, and we break all of those line items down and what we need to do in order to get it done. So for instance, when I rebranded systems and I built a new website, she actually was able to take all of those line items. We need this page, this page, this page. We need graphics, we need copy, all of the finite details. She took all of those, looked at what my commitments were on my calendar, and then plugged in blocks over time so we could actually hit our due date. That has been a lifesaver. Shout out to my girl. She already knows how much I love her, but drop in the comments, we love Alexa. Okay, just do it. Okay, so the next one's going to be networking. And honestly, this calendar has become kind of a lifeline. So back in May, I made it honestly a mission, a stretch goal, if you will, to attend 2 to 3 events every single week and just network more here in Austin. I feel like I don't take advantage of the fact that I live in a tech city. And so I use this calendar to track all of my RSVPs, reoccurring meetups, but it is my most fluctuating calendar. Every Monday over coffee, I literally sit and I scroll Eventbrite, I scroll Meetup, I scroll Luma to just kind of see what's going on. I'm on a couple other newsletters that give me insight into activities. And I just go to town and I just RSVP. I don't look at my calendar and say, okay, am I free this day? I just RSVP. And then as I'm planning my week, that's when I look at it and go, okay, I can't actually go to that event or whatever. Okay, so alongside networking, I've also been making more of an effort to connect with more people digitally by cold, warm email, LinkedIn connections, etc. And so my partnerships calendar is what blocks all of that time. And it's simple. It's a reoccurring time, so I actually spend the time doing what I just said. Next is going to be personal. This is obviously pretty straightforward. I block my morning workout, lunch, errands that may cut into my workday. However, I do not track things like chores or drinking water because honestly, that just seems fucking depressing and I refuse to do it. Next up is our project management calendar. So instead of combining planning and management of my team and client projects as deliverables, this calendar defines project management as its own focus. So I know exactly how much time I'm spending every week, checking in on progress, prepping for calls, etc. And then the last big calendar is my sales calendar. And obviously this tracks sales calls. It tracks when I'm sending RFPs, how long I'm taking on RFPs, and of course, following up with leads that haven't responded. My goal here though, this calendar is why it's important, is because our goal currently is to have 2 sales calls a week. And so this is super easy to be able to see this bright purple color to say, oh, we've hit that goal or not. The last thing that I have is a dedicated calendar for each side project that I'm working on. So one for our production house, pardon me, one for the board I'm on, Futurefront Texas, and so on. And if anything, this was probably the most helpful to create because I don't use separate emails for all of these interactions. I tend to lean on my system's email for everything because it's in one dedicated space. And I have a very finite email organization that I've kind of rigged for this because I do use my email so much. So if you want to see that video, like this one and comment down below that you want to see that. And so instead, I can just see if I have commitments outside of systems that week instead of, constantly switching calendars and having all of these tabs open. I just have everything in one place. And so all in all, I have 14 different color-coded calendars to track the major areas of my time. And I will say that while my calendar seems overwhelming to look at, it actually has reduced so much stress and overwhelm for me because I know at all times where my day is headed, how much energy I need to give, and most importantly, if I'm spending my time how I want to, rather than working super reactionary like I used to do as a freelancer. And so circling back to the beginning of this video, I'm very much an ambivert time blocker. Yes, I have the majority of my blocks pre-added, but I also add as I go. So especially with admin and client deliverables, for instance, if I have an email from a client who needs some troubleshooting, I do the task and then I add it into my calendar for however long it took me to complete. I also use a minimum of a 15-minute block just for a buffer for anything that I add in that are just simple one-off tasks so I can actually read the line item as I go. Then every week, Alexa looks at each calendar and she calculates all of the time spent between the categories and pops everything into Harvest for a monthly report to see a true breakdown of my time. Okay, so now that the semantics are out of the way, here's what you've been waiting for, creating the extra calendars. All you have to do is first open up Google Calendar and in the left side panel, click the plus sign next to Other Calendars. Select Create New Calendar, name the calendar, and then click Create Calendar. Once it saves, then you can go back to that side panel and change the color to whatever works for your vibe. And that's it. Easy peasy.
Ew.